Welcome back, everybody. Clint today with Classic Firearms, here to have a pretty serious conversation with everybody that might be looking into concealed carrying, might be thinking about getting into carrying a firearm, which you should, quite frankly. But ultimately, some things today we want to talk about are things to consider when concealed carrying or before you start to carry. Because this right here comes with quite a bit of responsibility and is, if you ask me, a pretty big deal. So let's just go ahead and hop right into it. To conceal carry a firearm ultimately means that you are finally accepting the responsibility of, well, preserving your own life, those around you, those you care about, things like that, right? You are finally taking your own safety into your own hands, which is a great thing to do because law enforcement, who is, well, probably busy, they're responding. They're not really preventing to a situation that might involve you and your life and your loved ones. So take that for what you will. And I really want this video today to be more so just 5 things to consider before you conceal carry, part 1, because this list can keep on going. In fact, I've written down over a period of time things to just think about, and in no particular order. We're just going to start with my first 5, and the first thing I have written down is mindset. And I think that's something a lot of people kind of, well, you got to be in the right mind before you start carrying a firearm, because this is ultimately your last resort, not your first option, right? Not something that you just want to turn to because somebody, said your wife is ugly. Or they made fun of the shitty car that you drive or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So turning to your firearm, like I said, is ultimately the last resort. And the mindset that you have to have when carrying a firearm should be that of cool levelness or cool-headedness. You want to maintain more of a level-headed composure is what I want to say. The mindset of, well, probably not drinking or doing drugs while you're carrying a firearm. Thinking about de-escalating situations, not escalating situations. The mindset of being situationally observant and not just looking down on your phone and just thinking, oh yeah, everything's cool around me. The mindset is probably one of the most important things, because at the end of the day, you're not looking to use this. You don't want to. That's actually going to be like a really bad day if you have to. So keeping a mindset that prevents you from using your firearm is probably a smart thing. Let's roll into the next topic. The next thing to take into consideration is picking the right gun for you. And this isn't sponsored by SIG in any type of way, but I do have here a SIG P238. This is a little 380 pistol that I've had for a very long time. That was actually a gift. And for some people, this might be a great tool for you. This might be, the 380 cartridge might be exactly what you're looking for. And, well, cool. So be it. And I know you guys are going to hit on that right there, the little pocket clip. You may not even noticed it. We're going to get into holsters. Don't worry. That ain't it. I have that on there as an example. But anyway, a 380 that only has 7 rounds or so might be ideal for you. This guy's pretty heavy though. I mean, it weighs quite a bit for what you're getting. Me personally, hey, I love, y'all already know, my 365X Macro. That has a 17 round capacity. I've got a light, I've got a red dot, things that some people might think is pretty much useless and that you may never use, but to each their own. I'd rather, well, have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, right? I think we've all heard that, and that's exactly why I choose to carry. But ultimately, picking the right gun for you. Maybe something that has that full-length grip, that has the 17-round mag capacity plus 1 in the chamber isn't for you. Maybe something a little bit lighter, something a little bit more compact. What's the basis in what you're going to carry? You got to think about that, right? And, well, a lot kind of goes into that. And one of my biggest recommendations for those of you that are looking into carrying a firearm or getting into owning your firearm or owning a firearm for the first time, go to a friend, to a range that allows you to rent, and try a whole assortment if you can. And also, watch a bunch of YouTube videos. Like, quite frankly, there's so many people covering so many different firearms, covering so many different things, categories, even holsters, all sorts of stuff, that honestly, you've got so much information out there, it can almost be a handicap, because with too much information, you could be getting factually incorrect information. You could be getting information that just doesn't apply. But the fact of the matter is, you've got it. So what firearm works best for you is ultimately going to be up to you to decide. Don't let some guy on the internet to tell you what you need. You have to determine that. And then once you figure that out, it gets a little bit easier. And it also might evolve as you start to carry a little bit more, and you might exercise, and now you're running and you're finding that the gun that you're running with isn't working out, and the holster that you're carrying isn't working out. And so all of the gear, the equipment, the firearm, the ammunition is something else to take into consideration. But all of this might evolve over your time carrying a firearm. Again, just more to think about. Moving on to the next category. Next topic I want to talk about is your gear / your holster for your firearm, because that is super important. You've got the right mindset, you've got the firearm, now you need the holster. What all is out there? Because let me tell you right now, there's a lot. And my favorite is just a quality Kydex holster that you see right here. This is Alpha Omega Kydex holsters, big fan of them. And they've got this sidecar design for a spare magazine that actually flexes with the body. It's just paracorded in, and it's nice and tight in space. And I carry this everywhere, and it hasn't failed me, and it just does everything I need it to do. I mean, so, you know, it retains the gun, it retains the magazine, it is comfortable. Exactly what you need it to do. Something I probably wouldn't recommend is exactly what I have on my 238 here, which is a pocket clip for your gun, so you can carry it inside the pocket. What the pocket clip does not do is it doesn't actually cover the trigger and the trigger guard area, which is pretty vital if you ask me. So I probably wouldn't recommend a pocket clip design for a holster. There's also different types of materials for holster, leather Kydex hybrids, things like that, which are fine. But like the leather holsters, some of those you'll see start to wear over time. And what you might notice is that leather will get into areas you don't want it to go, like in the trigger guard. Or you'll notice that whenever you go to reholster, especially if you're at, like, you know, the 4 o'clock position, that leather might start to fold over, and now you're trying to push that up with the muzzle, and now you're actually like flagging the crap out of yourself as you try to reholster. There's just things like that that are problematic. In consideration with the holster, you also have to take into consideration where you plan on carrying the holster. I personally like the appendix inside the waistband. Right here in front of me, it's easy to get to, and it's always in my line of sight, if you will. I never have to worry about it being, you know, let's say I have it small of the back or 4 o'clock. Okay, that's fine, to each their own, like I said, but in most situations that I ever imagine myself, again, that's just your imagination, but in most situations that we've seen through law enforcement video, dash cam footage, whatever it might be, what you typically see are in the vehicle, things like that. And if you've ever tried to draw from the hip or 4 o'clock position with a seatbelt on, it gets a little cumbersome. It's still very easy to do. In fact, I did a video recently about concealed carry inside the vehicle, and I found that the appendix inside the waistband is just very comfortable to draw on a target or a threat right out your window. Just saying, okay? So considering where you're going to carry the holster, what position you're going to carry, and then of course what style of holster is best for you. Again, these are things that are going to probably take time as you evolve, as you continue to carry, and you're like, this is comfortable, this is not. What's next? So again, just another thing to consider, which leads us into our next thing to consider. Number 4 is probably one of the most important. I mean, all of these are equally important in my mind, but training is something that I think a lot of people kind of forget about. There are a lot of courses out there that are, well, hosted by a lot of reputable instructors, and that's the other thing you should do, is seek instruction from somebody that that actually has a decent reputation and perhaps knows what they're talking about, because there's a lot of, just like here on YouTube, like I mentioned before, a lot of information, a lot of it good, a lot of it bad, a lot of it will get you killed. So what we're talking about here is quite literally life and death. So take into consideration valuable instruction or training from reputable instructors. That's all I'm saying. And it's not difficult to find them, because all it takes is again, the internet, a Google search to help find somebody of reputation to host great concealed carry classes. And there's a lot of courses out there that talk about carrying in and out of the vehicle, carrying in and out of the home, and so on and so forth. And just a basic pistol course is something I would absolutely recommend, because even me, I recently took a basic pistol course because I just, always the student type of mindset, as we all should be, I just wanted to, well, refamiliarize myself with the basic functions of a pistol. It's not a bad thing whatsoever. I take a lot of advanced courses, and it's also good to get back to the basics, the fundamentals, trigger control, breath control, all that type of fun stuff. So it just makes sense to get back to the fundamentals. I mean, after taking a bunch of advanced courses, things like that, it's good to get back to the basics, where we start focusing on breath control, trigger control, the basics functions of the firearms, things like that. It just kind of makes you appreciate the firearm all over again. Not that I'm saying I ever fall out of appreciation for them, but you get what I'm saying, right? So training is something that I think needs to be valued. Because the last thing you want to do, and this goes back to mindset, is just think, oh great, I've got a gun. There's nothing else I need to do. I've got a gun. I feel confident about it. And something I want to point out is, just because somebody says they were in the military or law enforcement, therefore they know what they're doing. How can I say this nicely? That's probably the furthest from the truth. Just because somebody says they're in the military or prior law enforcement doesn't mean they know jack shit about what they are talking about or what they're going to show you. So please don't just let somebody that has a military background claim they can train you. And some people also might be really great shooters, but really crappy teachers. Some people might be really great teachers, but really crappy shooters. And it's nice to find somebody with that good medium. Okay, so just, again, training is important. Don't sleep on it. Find a reputable instructor. Next category. For the fifth subject today to take into consideration before you conceal carry, think about your clothes. I've talked about the holster and the firearm. Think about the clothing that you wear, right? You'll notice that as you start to carry, you know, if it's summertime, your shorts and a t-shirt, you've got all of this in your appendix, and the t-shirt's a little bit more form-fitting, people are going to see you printing. What is printing? Printing is ultimately that. Making it very obvious that you've got something on under your clothing that isn't natural, isn't organically there, and that's where the holster plays a very large role. That's where the firearm plays a role, because typically it's right here, this grip, the heel of the grip, that's going to be printing. And of course your clothing. Me personally, having a hoodie like this, a jacket, makes concealed carrying very easy. So depending on where you live is something to take into consideration as well. But clothing is very important. What you want to avoid is printing, and of course with the holster, going back to that thing to take into consideration, avoid adjusting, especially avoid adjusting in public, because it just, or you know, fingering the gun, things like that, fidgeting and just like always checking to see if it's there. You got to have the confidence in your firearm, in your gear, in your clothing, that you're not printing, that you don't have to keep checking to make sure your gun is there, and that you're comfortable. So all of that is very important. Clothing to me is also very important, and not, here's something, if you go back and watch like some videos with me and Sarah, you'll see that my idea of printing isn't, or it's not that important to me, because I make sure if I do print, it's very subtle, right? Like typically naturally where the shirt wrinkles as it falls right at the waistline, if that shows just a little bit, I'm not too worried about it. Because one of the things that I kept thinking about when I first started carrying was, everybody's gonna know I'm carrying a gun. Everybody knows I have a gun on me. And then what I quickly realized was, nobody's paying attention to me whatsoever, and nobody's actually really paying attention to their surroundings anyway. So I'm good. If somebody does notice that you're carrying a firearm, that's when you want to start knowing your laws and things like that, which again, a whole separate topic to talk about, but I only wanted to keep it to 5 today because I'm sure this could be a part 2, even 3, even 4. There's a lot to take into consideration when carrying a gun. And of course, I'm sure the comment section is going to light it up as well. So for all of our, newbies out there that are looking to carrying a gun, first of all, I applaud you. Thank you for now trying to be an asset in society and not a liability. You can quickly, however, become a liability if you don't take into consideration things like an appropriate firearm, things like the appropriate mindset, the correct or the appropriate training. So focus on being an asset, not a liability. And I think that pretty much tops it off for today. Like I said, there's a lot of other things out there to take into consideration, and some important things are like knowing your laws, making sure that your self-defense ammo runs in your gun, and a bunch of other things, but I'm done talking about it because I can keep on going about this subject for a very long time, which is why I'm cutting myself short at just these 5 things to consider. So stay tuned for perhaps a part 2 or 3 or 4, like I've already talked about. And of course, the comment section, helping out all of our noobs out there that might be looking at carrying a firearm. Comment down below some other things to take into consideration, because even though I've got a lot written down here in my little Write in the Rain book, there's probably some things I have forgotten about or didn't consider. By the way, how many times did you guys count the word consider in this video? Don't take a shot for every single one. I want you guys here, okay? All right, I'll leave it off there. Don't forget